Hey, what's up? Lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the 1984 cult classic film Gremlins. This stars Zach Galligan, Corey Feldman, a bunch of other people are in this. This is a Steven Spielberg, Kathleen Kennedy produced film. This came out June 8th, 1984, the same day, June 8th, 1984, that Ghostbusters came out. Fun fact. Also, fun fact, this was filmed at the courthouse set at Universal Studios in California, which is the same exact set that Back to the Future was filmed on. So, Hill Valley in Back to the Future, and, oh crap, I forgot where this fictitious small town takes place. Anyway, it's the same set, and you can tell that because of the same, courthouse clock that, you know, is featured in both, and then also the same street that leads to the movie theater in both films. The movie theater has a bigger standpoint in Gremlins than it does in Back to the Future, but Marty McFly still drives his car, you know, still drives the Mandalorian, still drives the DeLorean on the same street to the movie theater before he hits that 88 miles per hour. So this film is, what is a gremlin? Let's put it that way. How did this movie come about? So Joe Dante directed this. Chris Columbus wrote this. And a gremlin was conceived during World War II, when, like, one of the planes, you know, would have, like, mechanical issues, but, like, no one shot at it, or, like, why is it just randomly having mechanical issues? So then the guys would be like, oh, you know, it's just the little gremlins that are in the machinery and, you know, taking out wires and stuff. These little, you know, creatures. So Roald Dahl, he made a book in 1943, I believe, called Gremlins, and it was about these little creatures, you know, that were attacking airplanes, you know, taking out machinery and things like that. So that's where this movie, you know, started from. This movie was conceived by Chris, basically, to, you know, put stories together for the Gremlins, and then Joe Dante put a twist on it, and Steven Spielberg bought the script from Chris Columbus before Chris Columbus was even a director, because it was original. It was something he's never seen before, so he was like, I need to produce this. So he executive produced it for Universal. Kathleen Kennedy produced it for Universal, and they had to, you know, put a lot of rights into, they had to buy a lot of rights for certain things. Like, there was Looney Tunes characters that were featured in this. That's a Warner Brothers property, not a Universal property. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was actually filmed during this, as in, like, the film was being shown and advertised, and a bunch of different Gremlins were watching the movie, and that's a Walt Disney Pictures property, so they had to buy, you know, rights to show that as well. I did like a little E.T. throw in, because it's a Universal Steven Spielberg, Kathleen Kennedy production, so I thought that was a nice little Amblin twist. So there's your fun facts. So the story starts out with this character, Billy's dad. Billy's played by Zach Galligan. His dad is a narrator, but he's also an inventor. So he's traveling. He's currently in Chinatown, and he, you know, stumbles upon this old, you know, Chinese guy's shop, and he sees this creature who's singing. The creature's called a mogwai, and the mogwai is not to be sold, but the Chinese guy's grandson sells it to, you know, Billy's dad anyway, because Billy's dad needs to give, you know, his son something really great for Christmas. I think Billy's like 19, 20 years old in this, something like that. Oh, Judge Reinhardt, he's in this movie as well. So the mogwai is brought back to the small town. Billy's given the mogwai as a gift. He names him Gizmo, or his dad named him Gizmo, Giz. So the 3 rules of a mogwai is you cannot feed them after midnight, don't get them wet, and keep them out of sunlight. Keep them out of bright light, because they don't like bright lights. So Corey Feldman plays like one of the neighbor kids, and he's over, and he's hanging out with Billy, and like they're you know, talking about comics, but then like he sees Gizmo. He's like, oh, what's this creature? So he accidentally hits a like jar of paint water and spills on Giz. Giz then like pops up these little puff balls, which then turn into their own tiny little mogwai. So they can reproduce by budding via water. That's why you're not supposed to get them wet. And then the 5 new mogwai are being led by this one particular mogwai who's got a mohawk. His name is Stripe. So Stripe is a prankster and a con artist. So he unplugs Billy's clock one night, and he gets Billy to feed them after midnight, which you're not supposed to do. So then they turn into these green, you know, twice the size of they are creatures that are just evil and clawed and want to kill and destroy. So they go on a rampage after, you know, Billy gives one of them to one of his old science teachers to do some experiments on. Billy's attacked at the school, and then, like, you know, Stripe jumps into a pool and creates a whole army of gremlins. This takes place on Christmas Eve, mind you. So it's a Christmas movie. And, you know, the gremlins are just wreaking havoc across the town. They're breaking lights. They're destroying Christmas trees. They're, you know, murdering people. There's chainsaws involved. There's saw blades being thrown. There's stabbing. There's, you know, Billy's mom traps one in a microwave, explodes them. She stabs one in the kitchen. She puts one in this, like, mixing blender bowl, like, and they bleed green. So there's green gremlin blood everywhere. And then Billy and Kate, the girl that he likes, that he works at the bank with, trap them in a movie theater, the movie theater we just talked about. And Billy breaks the gas line, explodes the movie theater. Trap will have a battle with Stripe at a department store, and then Stripe winds up being killed by sunlight because it's finally Christmas Day morning. Gizmo is saved, but then Christmas Day, the old Chinese guy tracks Billy's dad down, demands the Mogwai back, and then, you know, Gizmo says goodbye to Billy, and then that's the end of the movie. So what's very neat about this is this was rated PG. This is not a PG movie. This is a rated R movie. This should be rated R. So when parents started to complain about this in the 80s, the MPAA, who is the rating agency, if you will, they had to change the rating to PG-13, and then the sequel, Gremlins 2, the new batch, which came out in 1990, I believe, came out as a PG-13 movie. Definitely not a PG movie. So we actually have Gremlins to thank for changing how films are rated, whether they're appropriate or not. This is a violent Christmas film, and what's fun is the fact that it's a horror movie, right? Like, if you go on IMDb or Vudu, it's listed as a horror movie because it's a horror movie. It's a horror comedy movie. So Ghostbusters is also a horror comedy movie. They both came out June 8th, 1984. So a lot of critics and reviewers during 84 were realizing that this is where a new genre is being created. To have two horror comedy films come out the same weekend, right? June 8th, 1984, to then expand an entirety of new subgenres within a comedy and horror community, also with science fiction thrown into the fact, and fantasy, pretty incredible. So we have a lot to thank to Ghostbusters, we have a lot to thank to Gremlins. And here we are, over, 36 years later, and they're both still iconic masterpieces. So thank you, Steven, for buying Chris Columbus' script. Thank you, Joe Dante, for, you know, directing this film. And on to Gremlins 2. Let's do this. A new batch. Mucho mahalo.